And with that, I'll ask you, are you
Woo!
ready for rapid fire?
Yo, yeah, baby.
All right. So there's a few questions that came in the chat regarding NIL and paying players and stuff like that. And we've got the question about the UNLV quarterback that's going to come up in rapid fire. So I was kind of saving those for that. We're going to start with this one, though. Here's what Mike Denbrock said when he was asked about Jeremiyah Love not getting more touches. Quote, I don't think the narrative is fair to say the running backs aren't getting enough touches, because if you watch our running game and how it's constructed, it's built off of a lot of reading the edge. And so the defense is really going to dictate a lot more about who gets the ball and who gets the carry than I do, end quote. So, Vince, are you good with that?
That is the definition of coach speak, by the way. I don't disagree with the premise of what he's saying. I really don't, because there usually is some sort of an option or whatever when it comes to most of the run plays, right? Whether it's an RPO or whether it's a zone read or, whatever the case may be. So at the face of it, I don't disagree with his comment. I will also say you can make sure that certain guys get the ball more often. So,
because there are other ways to get them the ball than simply handing them the football.
Very
right?
true.
And especially from, either one of them, they haven't thrown either one of these guys the football very much. And, now I wonder, like, there's always that, are they saving something? Is there another level, like strategically for this team to go to against a team like Louisville, like a team like Louisville who was so really arrogant after the fact last year, but, or at least boastful about, we knew what they were going to do as soon as they lined up. And, you do have a different offensive coordinator and that kind of stuff this season. But you're absolutely right. One, we still haven't seen really anything in the way of screen passes and those kind of things for the running backs. Now, there's been a time or two where they've kind of tried it and it hasn't quite worked out. But again, I feel like you could set that stuff up more as well. And then two, like you said, if you want to hand Jeremiyah Love or Jadarian Price the football, but specifically Jeremiyah Love, just hand him the football. It doesn't have to be that hard. That's what it comes down to me. And, the other side of this is it's still not like we've seen a ton of RPO stuff, so whether, we're reading the edge or, whatever I guess some of that factors into, Riley Leonard pulling it and keeping it himself and, that kind of thing as well. So that doesn't necessarily fall into RPO, but it just feels like if you want to get the ball in Jeremiyah Love's hands more than 12 times per game, there are ways to do it. And it's simply put it in his hands. That's all you have to do. Don't think it has to be more complicated than that.
No, it really doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Al Golden says he had to get on his guys this week about not playing through the echo of the whistle in games at times this year.
I love the fact that even after the defense has been playing overall pretty darn well this season, that he's still getting on them about the little things. And that and playing to the echo of the whistle is a little thing. Like, being aggressive, just the little things about technique and then the little things that, like, 100%. There's no doubt about it. I think the fact that he's hitting the little stuff is very, very important. It's going to take this defense to a whole other level.
Yeah, to me, I guess I looked at it the other side. One, the defense has been playing fairly well, but like this comment came up kind of talking about, getting after some loose balls and stuff like that. But like, look, there has been, like, when you look at, I think the defense has played at a more consistent level than the offense. And I'm just talking about, like lack of lethargy and that kind of stuff. But the fact that you kind of have to remind guys at times, it's a little bit distressing to me, especially when you've played 2 games at home so far. And, look at, like, it was a flat first half last week against Miami, even though, again, the defense played well. So don't get me wrong. I'm not putting it on the defense, and again, you had good defensive effort overall I felt like, against Northern Illinois, but they needed to just make plays a little bit more. It is a little bit concerning to me, essentially, that Al Golden has got to be talking about coaching effort right now at this point in the season, because no coach wants to have to coach anybody's effort, especially when you play for a Power 4 school, and when that Power 4 school is Notre Dame as well. Fill in the blank. As of today, you feel blank about this Saturday's Louisville game.
I feel really confident, and it's not blind confidence. It is confidence in that I do really feel like Marcus Freeman's going to have this team up and ready to roll for this game. And his MO has been his teams are up for big games. This is a big game. There's no doubt about it. And so I really don't have an issue with this game. I might have an issue with other games on the schedule, but as of right now, for this game, there's going to be external motivation by Marcus Freeman. There's going to be internal motivation based on what happened last year to these guys. So just a little self-pride, right? Notre Dame's going to come out hot on this. They're going to come out on fire. They're going to come out enthusiastic. They're going to come out aggressive. And I think they're going to dominate Louisville. I really do think that. I hope I'm right, but I wouldn't have this kind of confidence if they were playing like Ball State. That's for sure.
Feels like you just made a series of guarantees there.
Oh, boy. After I was not trying to give guarantees about some other things.
In succession. Bada-boom, bada-boom, bada-boom.
I did.
They're going to do this. They're going to do this. And they're going to go inside, and they're going to go outside. And I'm cautiously optimistic. I feel pretty good about it, but there's just so much lingering uncertainty based off, again, the ups and downs of what we've seen these first few weeks in the season. And then you do have last year as well to go off of. Like, I have no doubt that last year should be a big motivator for this team, but exactly what that means, I don't know. Like they sure looked like a different team against USC last year than the year before out there at the Coliseum. I'll say that, but you got a night game, you got a different atmosphere. And that's kind of like, look, again, started off the show talking about people ticked off that, I don't know specifically what exactly we allegedly talked down to people about, but was it because, like we talked about the lack of real energy inside Notre Dame Stadium out there Saturday afternoon, that there could be a little bit more, that it's like, okay, you bought your ticket. If you really want to boo your own player, go ahead and boo. I know that's, kind of how you justify that stuff. But like I said, okay, rather than booing your own guy, how about you make your home stadium an actual hostile environment for the visiting team that has to play in it? So, like, are we going to actually see some of that Saturday? I sure hope so, because I think that could go a long way, because Notre Dame does tend to feed off that, it seems like.
As most teams do.
Right. So Andre says, we do realize Notre Dame's not a Power 4 school because it's not one of the Power 4 conferences. It is lumped into that conversation with
because they have specific caveats in the college football playoff that say Notre Dame.
Right.
So
they essentially have the same kind of autonomy as one of the Power 4. So
when it comes to negotiating, they actually have more power, because when they go to the negotiating table, the conference commissioners are there, as well as the Notre Dame athletic director. So, yeah.
Tom wants to know if we'd lay 6 points and bet the Irish or leave it alone.
I'm taking it. I'll take Notre Dame minus the 6.5 and be very happy.
The only time I have felt confident in putting money on Notre Dame so far this season was that season opener down at Texas A&M. And I won a pretty good amount.
There you go. See?
But the following week they were big favorites against Northern Illinois, and look what happened. And I don't feel confident about putting any of my money on anything related to them.
It's fair.
At this point, until we see a lot more consistency. That's the key word out of this whole thing, is consistency.
That's fair.
So fill in the blank. It's blank that UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka is opting out for the rest of the season due to an NIL dispute. He says he was promised $100,000 by a UNLV assistant coach to transfer from Holy Cross. UNLV is unbeaten with him at quarterback so far, but this guy has not been paid, and he says he has been told that that promise is not going to be honored in the future as well.
It's what everybody wanted. This is what everybody wanted. So I hope you're enjoying it. This should not be breaking news. This is what everybody wanted. And so this is kind of a make your bed, you got to sleep in it situation as far as I'm concerned. You know, you want to pay the players, you want to do all these different things, you want to, you know, make all these promises to these players to get them to come to your team. Well, if you don't live up to your promises, they're going to bail on you. And that's exactly what happened. And by the way, Sean, I don't know if you've seen on Twitter, the running back left too, because he didn't get what he was promised. So 2 guys from UNLV.
Michael Allen also entering the transfer portal as of this afternoon. And, you know, look, I don't have a problem with the players doing this. I
don't either.
Like,
I really don't.
This guy, I think this is his 5th year. It's either his 5th or his 6th right now. He played at Holy Cross. They promised him $100,000. Like, unless he ultimately ends up being on somebody's practice squad in a couple of years, $100,000 is a lot of money. And it's probably the most money he was ever going to make playing football, coming from Holy Cross to UNLV.
Yep.
And if you're going to, as UNLV or whatever other school, if you're going to promise these guys this kind of money, you got to pay up. And
I think they should be held accountable, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
These coaches need to be held accountable.
That's absolutely right. They should have to, you know, like, there should be some sort of hearing on this whole thing. And if these coaches made these promises and they're not following through on these promises, you know, the player should have gotten it in right yet. Just about 100%. Took the words out of my mouth, Jalen G. Get it in writing. Why you would go into that situation and not have it in writing is beyond me, which also makes this guy's only recourse, because they're not 4 games into the season yet. He can still redshirt, just like Jaden Mickey did. He can still redshirt, enter the transfer portal in December, and go someplace else next year, who hopefully actually follows through on what they promise this guy. I mean, it's not unlike what happened with, you know, the quarterback at Florida, and, you know, went like he was promised millions of dollars, and then he ended up going to Arizona State and all that different stuff. It's like, you got to follow through on this. You know, you can't just tell these guys that you're going to give them all this NIL money, and then once they get there, it's like, oh, sorry, you know, this isn't 1980 when no one was going to find out about this stuff, and you could just bury it like SMU tried to do, you know, with all their payments and everything. I guess that was the opposite direction, because they were actually paying people, but they weren't supposed to. But still,
this is not on the kid in any way, shape, or form, and this is all he's got. The only leverage he has is his talent.
Right.
That's the only leverage he has.
Right.
And so he's taking his talent elsewhere, as they say. And I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I really don't.
You know, like I said, that's the only chance he's got to get paid to play football again, is keeping that year of eligibility and hoping that somebody, you know, makes him some kind of offer and actually follows through on it next year. I mean, all these, well, I'll just save it, because there's been a lot going on this week with the Mountain West Conference schools defecting to the Pac-12. Scale of 1 to 10, how much do you care, Vince?
Ooh, like a 3. Because here's the thing. I don't think the Pac-12 is ever going to rebound and be a power blank conference. They're not going to change it from a Power 4 to Power 5 just because now they have the numbers, because basically you're the Mountain West rebranded. So I don't care that much, because they're going to end up being a group of 5 conference. So, or a group of 6 now.
That's exactly, you know, that's why mine is probably a 1, because
there you go.
There's going to be somebody out there. There had to be more than 2 teams in the Pac-12 for it to, you know, like for everybody, you know, to even for it to stay intact as any kind of conference. All you're doing is just creating an overblown, like you said, it'll be group of 6 now instead of group of 5. All you're doing is creating another conference that nobody cares about. I'm sorry, like, why didn't the Mountain West just stay into, like,
right? It just absorbed the
Washington
other
State
two.
and Oregon State kept resisting, and I don't know like what they think they're going to get in terms of TV money, but
it's got to be money based, right?
like, are you really going to get that much more just because it's called the Pac-12 instead of the Mountain West?
I feel like
that's the only difference, because the schools are obviously all going to be the same.
Yeah, I feel like, remember the Pac whatever kept all this money when all these teams left, so they've got a war chest. I guarantee you they're paying that money out.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But
then these schools are also, for leaving the Mountain West, they've got exit fees that they're going to have.
That's
to
true.
Pay,
that is a very, very good point. But I would assume the exit fees for a Mountain West team are going to be considerably lower than the exit fees were for a Pac team.
Or an ACC team.
Or an ACC team. Yep, exactly right. And I don't know what the ESPN contract is with the Pac conference. If that's still intact, if there's still going to be money available now that they're going to have teams again. I don't know if you know what I mean? Like,
well, it all blew up. Like, I don't think there is
a
contract.
Well, that's my question. Like, does it kick back in now that they have enough teams? You know what I mean? But let's face it, the Pac whatever is probably still a more sought after product than the Mountain West was. Maybe not by much, but it's still got name recognition. So they'll probably still make more money.
Pac-12 sounds better, but
it'd be like the Pac-8 again.
Yeah,
whatever it is. I don't even know how many they're up to now.
When Utah State comes to town, like, not much of a TV draw. Yeah, so
this is true. I don't know how many teams they're up to now as far as what they've asked for.
No, literally, I haven't, like, when Utah State, I know Boise State is part of the deal, and Bryce says he's a Boise State fan and hate the transition because the Mountain West is more organized and Pac-12 management is and always has been terrible. That's why the Pac-12's in the situation that they're in.
So it looks like there's 7 teams right now. Does that sound right? Looks like San Diego State, Utah State, Washington State, Oregon State, Fresno State, Colorado State,
Boise State.
That's 7. Am I missing? That's the most recent thing that was put out 18 hours ago. So I would assume that is kind of where they stand. So they're the Pac-7 right now. Right? And apparently you have to have the word state in your school.
Yeah, to be part of that conference, because they all have state in the mix.
And it's not even going to start until 2026. So I wonder if maybe that's when the Mountain West Conference contract and stuff came up. You know what I mean? So maybe there's not as much of a buyout at that point, because maybe that's when they were going to why not do it for 2025? Why are we waiting until 2026?
Yeah.
So
yeah, UNLV is one of the teams.
Well, now without a court
been discussed. Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that after hosting a Friday night game against Illinois last week, Nebraska athletic director Troy Dannon has informed the Big Ten that the school does not want to host future Friday night games other than its traditional Black Friday game that they play against Iowa every other year. They go to Iowa one year and then they get to host Iowa the next year. Your thoughts?
Great. Way to stand up for yourselves, because Friday night is for high school.
Well, here's the thing, though.
I know they're saying it's because they cancel classes or something.
They don't want to host it, but they're fine actually playing. Yeah, they canceled classes so that all the students could, do game day stuff. It's like,
that's dumb. You don't have to cancel classes.
Right. The game didn't kick off until like 8 o'clock,
you don't
I guess 7 o'clock local time. Just everybody goes
That's
to
a really
class
dumb
still.
excuse. What they're really saying is they don't want to compete with high school. That's what they're saying. Because I don't know, did you see that all the local Omaha high schools, they played their games on Thursday night so that it didn't interfere with the Friday night game. So I think part of it is they don't want to disrupt all of the Friday, what they normally do on a Friday night.
Interesting.
I think that's part of it.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of metro, bigger cities that play a lot of Thursday games anyway, like Thursday afternoon games, even, like to avoid the night games and, all that different kind of, or in Saturday afternoon games for that matter. But like, if you're going to host one Friday game a year, I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, if I'm the Big Ten, I'm telling them, okay, I guess you'll just go on the road for all these Friday games. You'll never get, you'll lose out on whatever. Like, but if I'm the Big Ten, I also like they can write me letters and they can tell me they strenuously object to hosting Friday games and all this stuff. Like, what do I care? Like,
Well, at the
you're
end of
Nebraska,
the day,
you're part of the Big Ten.
yeah,
Like, you have to do contractually, like
yes.
You're taking these big paychecks from all these different TV networks. You have to do what everybody else has to do. And that means sometimes you have to suck it up and you have to host a Friday night game.
And at the end of the day, you signed up for the money. So you got
Exactly.
you've got to do it. You don't have a choice. Like it, I appreciate that they don't want to have Friday night games. I do, because I hate Friday night football games. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to do what your boss tells you to do. And your boss is the Big Ten commissioner. So that's kind of how that goes.
That's right.
I mean, it just stinks.
Yep. Okay, a few follow-ups from the chat. Joe, do you think because players are basically using NIL as a pay-for-play, do you think that if they redshirt themselves, their NIL deals could be forfeited?
Well, but the thing is, they're not getting their NIL deal. That's why he redshirted himself, right? I mean, most of the times these guys aren't redshirting themselves, right? This is a unique situation. So do you think I guess, Joe, my question to you would be, are you taking the money away from Jaden Mickey because he's now redshirting at Notre Dame? Whatever money he was making, does he not have to pay that back?
Well,
now?
And I think what he's saying is, like the school or, whatever would say, hey, we gave you this deal contingent upon you were coming here to play, but now you're redshirting. So we're going to hold out.
Right.
Like that kind of thing.
In theory, I do not disagree. But if we're talking about the UNLV kid, he didn't get what he was told he was going to get. So that's why he's redshirting himself. Like, most kids aren't coming to a school, taking the NIL money, and then redshirting themselves.
Right.
Like, that's not really but so in theory, I do agree with Joe. There are extenuating circumstances, like Jaden Mickey, for example, right? Where he is getting NIL money and he's not going to play for Notre Dame the rest of the way. Do you take that money back? I guess I really don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. And I guess part of that depends on, because there are agents involved in everything else. Like, are there stipulations in whatever agreement that was made that says you have to play X amount of games in order to actually cash this check?
You got to protect yourself on either side
or whatever else. Yeah. But there are plenty. Most everybody on scholarship at Notre Dame is getting some kind of NIL money.
Even the walk-ons are getting some NIL money too.
There are different levels of how much they're getting, obviously. So like in that particular case, like obviously, if a guy was going to enter into an NIL agreement and then he comes to whatever school that he happens to go to and he gets hurt and that ends up with him redshirting,
not fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But at the same time, you're not going to throw a boatload of money at a guy who's going to come and who you think is going to come and end up not starting for you, right? And so even if he doesn't end up starting, like he's number 2 on the depth chart, you're not going to say, well, you're not starting, so we're not giving you
that's not
your
fair.
NIL.
I mean, look, I came and I gave it everything I got. That's not my fault that you're not starting me, or I mean, it is because you're not better. But yeah, I mean, the promises should be kept on both sides. That's just how any deal should be struck, right?
Right. Rabanel Chihuahua wants to know that, like, the thought of paying players next year and how that'll change things. Anticipate contracted players
But they are paying players now.
Right.
So
they're already paying players, and you're going to have revenue sharing coming next year. So, and that's part of why you've got these scholarship.
Yeah. So. I mean, I don't have any thoughts on it because they're already doing it. And literally every player on Notre Dame's roster is getting money. So it's no different than it would. I mean, maybe it'll be broken up differently moving forward, but it's no different next year than it is this year. They're all getting money.
I mean, honestly, the only thing that it'll, change like that people notice is like you're going to have fans saying, well, everyone is getting paid. So now I've got more of a right to get mad and yell at everybody.
It's not going to slow anybody down that wasn't already yelling to begin with.
That's right.
And the revenue sharing isn't going to make any difference. They're all getting it. Like, again, if I'm a player, I don't give a crap where the money's coming from as long as it's going into my bank account. It doesn't matter which revenue stream it's coming from. I don't think that makes any difference whatsoever.
Yeah. And look, like, I'm glad that I don't have to deal with all of this stuff. There's a new system coming, and that's for the school and its administrators and the players and now their agents to figure out. So Ravenel says, legally, doesn't that make them employees?
No,
because not yet. They're not to that point yet.
I'm not an employee. I'm technically not an employee of Irish Breakdown,
but you're getting paid.
I'm an independent contractor, right? So, and I get paid by Irish Breakdown. So those are two. If we're going the legal sense, I mean, I don't think their money is getting taxed, Sean, by the university, or you know what I mean. Like they may have to pay taxes in the rears, when they file their tax returns. But I don't think the university's taking taxes out when they're paying these kids.
Well, not yet.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Because as of right now, it is not the school that is actually paying them. They're coming from third parties.
Correct.
So
correct.
Whether it's individual companies like Under Armour and Dick's or whoever it happens to be,
I still think it gets murky when you start making them employees, right? I think they're all going to be independent contractors. And it's going to be up to them, and it's going to be their responsibility to, claim the money that they're making. I mean, and then they're all going to have to pay in April, like all the other Joe Schmoes out there, because that's taxable income. So, again, doesn't make them employees, though.
Right. Decaf, have you seen some schools putting a talent tax on tickets? I think we talked about this last week. Tennessee is going to be doing it, and I think it's
smart.
Sucks as a fan because you're going to have to pay a little bit more to go to your games, but at the same time, all these players are going to have to be played. You got to pay. Players are going to have to be played.
That was great.
Still can't say it. Players are going to have to be paid, and you got to come up with the money someplace. So you add a little bit more to the tickets, add a little bit more to the parking passes that you're selling. Just charge a little bit more at your concessions. Come up with, just to add a little bit here and there. It's going to get more expensive to go to the games, but got to pay them. The corporation is never going to give up the profit margin if it can help it, and they've got to pay them. So I'll be shocked if it's not everywhere within the next 5 years.
Oh, I completely agree.
Hot dogs are now $10, DK says. What? That's a bargain. Where are you finding $10 hot dogs? All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. We will get out of here on that. A lot of good questions, as always. Appreciate you being here for the Mailbag Show tonight. We've got Marcus Freeman and his noon comments tomorrow, and so that means we'll have some of those comments on tomorrow night's show, and it is also We In, We Out Thursday on the show. So head to the new Champions Lounge, get in your We In, We Out questions, and we will talk to you then. Public service announcement, just in case maybe this has slipped by anybody. Saturday's game, only on Peacock, no NBC. So don't get caught at the last minute Saturday looking for the game on NBC. You've got to get it on the Peacock streaming service. So hear me now, thank me later. We'll talk to you tomorrow. IB Nation Sports Talk.
That's great.